During my solo business trip to Japan, my boss insisted I experience a true cultural welcome. That night, he took me to a private tea ceremony where a man in a silk kimono smiled and whispered, "Tonight, you belong to tradition." Before I could refuse, the entire room applauded, and a woman gently placed a gold ring on my finger. My heart pounded as my boss leaned in and said, "Congratulations, you're now part of something bigger than marriage." Trembling, I stammered, "What did you just do?" The doors locked behind me, and I realized I wasn't leaving alone. I never thought a business trip could ruin my life. But Japan had other plans. I work for a mid-sized tech firm, and last year, I got sent on a solo trip to Tokyo. My boss, Richard, was already there and insisted I arrive a day early so I could get the real cultural experience. He said it like he was doing me a favor. I didn't think much of it at the time. Tokyo was on my bucket list, and my wife, Julia, encouraged me to go. "Enjoy yourself," she said. "Just don't come back married to a geisha or something." I laughed. If only she knew. Richard met me at the airport, way too enthusiastic for someone who usually treated me like an afterthought. "Tonight's special," he said. "You're getting the real Tokyo welcome." I assumed he meant dinner at some fancy restaurant or maybe a private sake tasting. Instead, a black car picked us up and took us away from the bright, chaotic streets of Shibuya. As the neon signs disappeared, the roads got quieter. The buildings changed, sleek glass and steel replaced by old, traditional wooden structures with hanging lanterns. The car stopped in front of a place I never would have noticed on my own. No big sign, no English menu. Just a small wooden plaque with elegant kanji carved into it. The kind of place that felt like a secret. Inside, everything was hushed. The air smelled like tea and incense. A woman in a pale blue kimono greeted us and led us down a hallway, past sliding paper doors. Every step felt like it was taking me further from the world I understood. We entered a private room, dimly lit, with tatami mats and low cushions. An older man sat at the head of the room, watching us. His face was calm, unreadable. "This is Master Yamamoto," Richard said. "An old friend." The man gave me a small nod, like he already knew something I didn't. I was about to introduce myself when a young woman entered, wearing a deep red kimono. She carried a small velvet box in her hands. My stomach tightened. I didn't know why, but something about this felt off. Master Yamamoto spoke in perfect English. "Tonight, you become part of something greater than marriage." Before I could react, the woman opened the box and pulled out a gold ring. She slipped it onto my finger. The room burst into applause. I felt like I had just been shoved off a cliff. My mouth went dry. I looked at Richard, expecting him to laugh, to tell me it was a joke. Instead, he leaned in and whispered, "Welcome to the family." My pulse pounded. What did you just do?" Richard didn't answer. The woman in red was still holding my hand, her fingers cold and delicate. Then the doors locked behind me. That's when I realized I wasn't leaving alone. My instincts were screaming at me to get up, to get out. But everyone in the room was watching me, waiting for my reaction. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my voice. "This isn't real, right?" Richard just smirked. Master Yamamoto poured himself tea like none of this was unusual. "It is not a Western marriage. Think of it as a sacred bond." I pulled my hand away from the woman, my breathing uneven. "I already have a wife." Master Yamamoto didn't blink. "She is not here." Richard clapped me on the back. "Relax, man. This is an honor. Asami will take care of you when you're in Japan." Asami. That was her name. She was still standing beside me, watching me with dark, unreadable eyes. My hands clenched into fists. "I don't want this. I don't accept this." Master Yamamoto simply nodded toward the guards by the door. Two men in black suits stepped forward. "You cannot leave," he said. "Not yet." A slow, creeping panic crawled up my spine. I reached into my pocket, feeling for my phone, but what the hell was I going to do? Call the police? What would I even say? I turned to Richard, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm not joking. I want out." He sighed like I was being difficult. "This is bigger than you, man. Just go along with it." I took a step back, but Asami reached for my hands again. This time, her grip was stronger. "You belong to the tradition now." My stomach twisted. "This is insane," I muttered, jerking away. Master Yamamoto smiled, completely at ease. "You will see in time." They led me into another room. Larger, more private. Traditional futons on the floor, silk curtains, dim lighting. A private suite. The walls were thick, soundproof. Asami followed. I wanted to push past her, force my way out, but the guards stood by the door, waiting. She knelt gracefully, hands resting in her lap. "You should not fight this." My throat was dry. "You don't even know me." Her head tilted slightly. "I know enough." My whole body was tense, my mind racing. "I love my wife." Something flickered in her eyes. "That is not important here." I wanted to laugh, to scream, to shake her, to make her understand. but she already did. And she didn't care. I don't remember much of what happened next. I remember the feeling of silk, the sound of my own heartbeat, the weight of the ring on my finger. I betrayed my wife that night. The flight home felt unreal. My skin crawled the entire way. I couldn't look at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. My wedding ring, the real one, felt foreign, like it belonged to someone else. The gold ring from that night sat buried deep in my suitcase. I wanted to throw it away, but some sick part of me was afraid to. Julia met me at the airport, smiling. She kissed me, held my hand, asked me how the trip was. I wanted to tell her everything, but I couldn't. The nightmares started immediately. A week later, a package arrived. Inside was a letter written in delicate Japanese calligraphy. And a photograph. A photograph of me and Asami. Her curled against me, her face against my chest. My arm around her. My expression, calm, content. I almost threw up. At the bottom of the letter, a single line was written in English. Do not dishonor the bond. I couldn't hide it anymore. I told Julia everything. She cried. She screamed. She threw things. And then she whispered I knew it. I fucking knew it. She left the next day. Richard acted like nothing happened. It's just business, he said. Asami still sends letters. And me? I wake up in a cold sweat, heart pounding, waiting for the knock on my door. Because somehow I know. Japan isn't done with me yet. I barely slept after Julia left. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Asami's face. Not just in my dreams, everywhere. In the shadows of my apartment, in the reflection of my laptop screen, in the crowd on my morning commute. I told myself it was just guilt. That it would fade. That I could move on. Then, 2 weeks later, she showed up in New York. I was in my office when my assistant knocked. There's a woman here to see you, she said. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's important. I frowned. Who? The door opened wider and Asami stepped in. I nearly dropped my coffee. She looked exactly the same as that night in Tokyo. The red kimono was gone. Now she wore a sleek black dress, her long hair loose around her shoulders. She looked out of place in the sterile, modern office. Too quiet. Too composed. I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. How did you? She smiled softly. You did not say goodbye. My assistant glanced between us, clearly sensing the tension. Should I leave? Asami said without looking at her. My assistant hesitated, but then slipped out, shutting the door behind her. I took a shaky breath. Why are you here? Asami stepped closer, slow and deliberate. You did not answer my letters. I swallowed hard. Because I don't want this. I never wanted this. She tilted her head, studying me. That does not change what is. I felt a cold sweat on my back. You can't just show up here. She reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She placed it on my desk. Read it. I hesitated before picking it up. The paper was smooth, expensive. Elegant Japanese calligraphy filled the page. I didn't understand most of it, but my eyes caught the English words at the bottom. Your wife dishonors the bond. She is being dealt with. My blood turned to ice. I shot up from my chair. What the hell does this mean? Asami didn't react. She simply said, you belong to us. She does not. I felt dizzy. My thoughts were racing. Where's Julia? Asami didn't answer. I grabbed my phone and dialed Julia's number. Straight to voicemail. My hands were shaking. What did you do? Asami reached out and gently touched my wrist. Her fingers were warm, soft. Too soft for what I knew she was capable of. You left her, she said. You chose me. I yanked my hand away. No, I didn't. She smiled, but it wasn't kind. You did the moment you put the ring on. I drove straight to Julia's apartment. My heart was hammering the entire way. I tried calling her again and again. Nothing. When I got there, the front door was wide open. The apartment was wrecked, furniture overturned, papers scattered, the smell of something sharp and metallic in the air. And then I saw it. On the kitchen counter, next to an untouched cup of coffee, was the gold ring. Mine. The one I'd hidden at the back of my drawer. Next to it was a single sheet of paper. Your shadow wife is patient. You should be too. I couldn't breathe. I turned in a panic, searching for some sign of her, some clue, but the room was dead silent. Then my phone buzzed. A text. No name. No number. Just a message. She is not lost. She is learning. My hands clenched around my phone. My vision blurred with rage. I wasn't just afraid anymore. I was ready to fight. I stood in the middle of Julia's apartment, my breath coming in short, ragged bursts. The walls felt like they were closing in. The gold ring on the counter gleamed under the kitchen light, like it was mocking me. I grabbed it, squeezing it so hard my fingers ached. She is not lost. She is learning. What the hell did that mean? I didn't know where to go. Who to call? The police? What would I even say? That my shadow wife had kidnapped my real wife? That I was tricked into some twisted tradition in Japan? They'd think I was insane. I turned toward the door, my pulse pounding. Then I noticed something I'd missed before. The air vent above the bookshelf. It was slightly open. I stepped closer, a cold dread crawling up my spine. When I reached up and pulled it open, a small camera lens glinted inside. Someone had been watching her. For how long? I ripped the camera out, my hands shaking. There was no doubt in my mind anymore. This wasn't just some weird, symbolic tradition. This was something darker. And I wasn't dealing with it alone. I stormed out of the apartment and drove straight to Richard's place. Richard lived in a high-rise in Midtown, the kind of place with a doorman who probably knew more secrets than he let on. I didn't bother announcing myself. I pounded on his door until I heard footsteps. He opened it, shirtless, holding a whiskey glass. Jesus, what? I shoved past him. Where is she? Richard sighed like I had just asked him the time. I was wondering when you'd come running. That sent a fresh wave of rage through me. You knew. You fucking knew this would happen. Richard took a slow sip of his drink. Of course I did. That's how it works. My stomach twisted. You set me up. He smirked. Don't take it so personally. It was your turn. I grabbed the front of his shirt and slammed him against the wall. Tell me where she is. Now. Richard didn't flinch. If anything, he looked amused. I can't. I shoved him harder. Wrong answer. He chuckled. You still don't get it, do you? I wanted to punch him. I should have punched him. But then he said something that made my blood run cold. You were always going to lose her. I froze. Richard adjusted his collar, shaking his head like I was some clueless idiot. They've been watching you for months. You were chosen. It didn't matter if you said yes or no. The moment you stepped into that tea house, it was already done. I felt like I was going to be sick. Why me? Richard sighed, rubbing his forehead. Because you were perfect. Married. Loyal. A good man. They like breaking men like you. I felt something snap inside me. I hit him. Hard. His whiskey glass shattered against the floor as he stumbled back, laughing. Laughing? You think you're the first to fight back? Richard wiped the blood from his mouth, grinning. You can't win. I wasn't listening anymore. I turned and stormed out. I needed a plan. I needed help. But as I reached the elevator, my phone buzzed. Another text. Go home. I ignored it. Then another. Go home. You have a guest. My stomach twisted. I ran. I barely remember the drive back. I nearly ran a red light. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. I pulled up to my apartment building, heart hammering. The lobby was empty, eerily quiet. I took the stairs 2 at a time. When I reached my door, it was unlocked. I stepped inside slowly, fists clenched. Then I saw her. Julia. She was sitting on the couch, legs crossed, perfectly still, wearing a silk kimono. Red. Just like Asami's. My breath caught in my throat. Julia? She turned her head, slowly. Smiled. Something was wrong. Her eyes. They weren't hers. You took too long, she said softly. Then she held up her hand. And on her finger was a gold ring. Like mine. My world tilted. My vision blurred. Then the lights flickered, and a familiar voice came from the hallway. As I said, Asami murmured, stepping inside. She is learning. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Julia sat there, wearing that red kimono, her fingers brushing over the golden ring on her hand like it had always belonged there. She looked up at me, and for a split second, I thought I saw something: fear, confusion, a plea for help. But then it was gone. She smiled again. Not her smile. Asami, I rasped, not daring to look away from Julia. What did you do to her? Asami stepped closer, calm as ever. She accepted the bond. She would never, she had to, Asami interrupted smoothly. You left her no choice. My stomach twisted. Julia finally spoke, her voice soft. It's okay, love. My whole body went cold. Love. She hadn't called me that since before she left. And now she was saying it with that eerie calm, like she wasn't even herself anymore. I shook my head, backing away. No, this isn't real. You're not her. You abandoned me. Julia's voice sharpened, and for the first time, I saw something real: pain, anger, something desperate and raw. You betrayed me. I swallowed hard. They did this. Not me. You have to fight this, Julia. She tilted her head, still playing with the ring. But why would I? Asami let out a quiet laugh, stepping beside her. She understands now. She understands you. I wanted to rip that ring off her finger, shake her, drag her out of this nightmare. But she wasn't reaching for me. She wasn't fighting. She was sitting there. Still. Accepting. She wasn't leaving with me. I clenched my fists. What do you want? I finally asked, my voice shaking. Asami's dark eyes flicked toward me. You already know. I did. I had known from the moment I stepped into that tea house in Tokyo. They didn't want a contract. They didn't want loyalty. They wanted submission. Control. And now they had Julia. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at her, waiting for something, anything to change. But it didn't. I felt sick. Trapped. Defeated. You can't win, Richard had said. Maybe he was right. Maybe I had already lost. The next few weeks passed in a haze. Julia moved back into our apartment, but it wasn't our apartment anymore. It felt like a set, a stage, where she played the role of my wife, but something was off. She was softer now. More patient. Always watching. She spoke in perfect Japanese when she answered phone calls I wasn't allowed to hear. She started wearing traditional clothes at home, letting her hair fall the way Asami's had that night in Tokyo. She never took off the ring. And every time I looked at her, I saw Asami's shadow behind her eyes. Then, one night, she woke me up. I opened my eyes to find her sitting up in bed, looking down at me. Her face was blank, but there was something in her hands. A second ring. She held it out to me, her voice barely a whisper. It's time. I swallowed hard. For what? Julia's fingers curled around the ring, and I felt my heartbeat slam in my chest. You can still choose, she said. Be with me. Stay. Stop fighting. It doesn't have to be painful. I sat up slowly, my hands gripping the sheets. And if I say no? Julia's lips parted, but she didn't answer. The silence burned. And I knew. She didn't know either. She wasn't in control. She was trapped, just like I had been. Just like I was. And that's when I realized, this wasn't about marriage. This wasn't about love. It was about ownership. And I was never supposed to leave. I ran. I grabbed the ring from her hands and threw it across the room, bolting for the door. I didn't think, I couldn't think. I just knew I had to get out. But Julia was faster. She tackled me from behind, her weight slamming into my back, knocking me to the floor. I struggled, trying to throw her off, but her grip was unnatural. Stronger than it should have been. Stop, she gasped, her breath ragged, her fingers digging into my arms. Please, just listen. I don't want to hurt you. She was crying. And for a moment, I hesitated. For a moment, I saw my wife again. But then I heard footsteps in the hallway. And I knew who was coming. I wrenched free and ran. Julia screamed my name, but I didn't look back. I sprinted down the stairs, out into the cold night air, lungs burning. I didn't stop running. Not until I reached the one place I knew they wouldn't follow. A police station. I filed a report. I told them everything. They didn't believe me. Of course they didn't. But the next day, Julia's apartment was empty. No sign of her. No sign of Asami. No sign that she had ever lived there. Her name disappeared from every record. Her job. Her bank accounts. Her credit history. Like she had never existed. It's been 6 months. I moved to a different city. Changed my number. Got a new job. But I still check my mail every morning, half expecting another letter. I still wake up at night, thinking I hear her voice whispering in the dark. And I still feel the weight of that gold ring on my finger, even though I never wore it again. I try to tell myself that I got away. That it's over. But deep down, I know the truth. They're just waiting.